We're going to have trouble sharing the agenda with you tonight. So we'll see. I wanted to be able to share with you guys what we were going to do, but I can just read through it otherwise. All right. So we'll give another minute or two for additional people to join. Welcome, David. And then we do have Carol with us from Fair Districts. She's the Pennsylvania chair. I've asked her to join us and give a little update about the work that they are doing and opportunities for people to get involved in supporting their organization, which is very much aligned with what we're asking from our elected officials, and a great place for people to get involved and spend some of their time and energy. I'm going to spend just a couple minutes after Carol's done talking about how we can build coalitions and alliances with other like-minded groups across the state, and ways that things that I might need from you in order to make the right connections as we continue to reach out to people. Rachel's going to share some about the priorities as we start rolling those out. And she's going to share that document with you. Ben's going to go over some election talk, giving a brief 23 recap, and also talk about our goals for 24. And Brian and Leah are going to share some things, just some call to action items, some opportunities for you to get involved. Which I was looking to share up on the screen. I apologize. There must be a connection weakness on my side that's not allowing that to share properly. But I really appreciate everyone taking the time to join us tonight. Chris, congratulations, sir. It's the first time I've seen you or been able to speak to you in person since the election, but many are celebrating your accomplishment as one of the first two forwardists elected into office. And we really appreciate your responsiveness and stepping up to that calling, and you were representing well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Christian. It's an honor to be able to do this. Thank you.
All right, so I see many others have joined us here. John, Dan, Leah, great. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm going to give the floor to Carol and have her share with you about the things that are happening with Fair Districts PA.
Thank you so much. And I see some familiar faces, folks who've been involved with Fair Districts at different points in the past. So happy to see some of you. And I must say that the priorities that Forward has, or the values, the high level agenda that Forward Party has shared aligns really, really well with where Fair Districts PA is in terms of wanting redistricting reform so that we have better representation, so we have better legislative and congressional maps, so that our votes count, and so our legislators actually have to listen to us, which is really not always the case. So Fair Districts PA started in 2016. At the time, Pennsylvania had probably any short list of really badly gerrymandered states. Pennsylvania was on it for congressional maps as well as for state house and Senate maps. The League of Women Voters lawsuit in 2018 changed that for our congressional maps, which made them much more fair. And then this last process in 2021, we moved from being among the very worst to being somewhere in the middle of the pack. There was a report that just came out a few weeks ago that gave Pennsylvania a C+ for our redistricting process and our new maps. But there's no guarantee that improvement continues, and C+ is not a grade that we aspire to, and we'd like to have much better maps and a much better process. We have worked since 2016 to get a constitutional amendment to create an independent citizens redistricting commission for congressional and legislative maps. In 2018, we had 110 co-sponsors on a House bill. That's more than a majority. And yet that bill was gutted and then left in committee and went nowhere. We also managed to get movement on a Senate bill, which then got saddled with a constitutional amendment to create judicial districts, which had great pushback, and that bill got stranded and buried under over 600 amendments in the House. And again, that went, no, fortunately it was buried, because the judicial districts provisions would have been pretty terrible for Pennsylvania. So we've been working to get a constitutional amendment passed. It's, as you know, in Pennsylvania, it's a really long process. You have to get the same bill through both chambers in 2 successive sessions before it can go to a public referendum. It's been a little bit heartbreaking to watch other states that formed fair districts groups, or voters, not politicians groups working on constitutional amendments, to watch states that have a citizen referendum form, collect petition signatures, put their bill on the ballot, and get it passed. And we've watched that happen in several states while we've been struggling to get our legislature to listen. So we are right now looking for prime sponsors for the next version of the amendment that we'll be hopefully be introducing very shortly. We learned a lot through this last mapping process and watching what happened in other states. So we're more determined than ever that legislators should really have minuscule role, if any, in selecting the commissioners, that there has to be a really clear fail-safe, because we've seen states that don't have a good fail-safe. The process go back to the stall out, process goes back to the legislature does their thing, they gerrymander, and you end up with bad maps again. So the way that the bill is written is really important. Also, having clearly prioritized criteria. We're watching what's happening in New York. They're right now in litigation again. There's a lot of states have been in litigation ever since the maps were drawn. New York is one of those states, and in part because the criteria were not clearly prioritized. So they can say, well, we met the criteria, but in a way that allowed gerrymandering of the maps. And so the bill that we're working on is intended to have a very independent commission, a very clear public process, and clearly prioritized criteria. And that bill, we're hoping co-sponsor memos will be circulating sometime in December, and then we're hoping it will be officially introduced in January. We're hoping to have a press conference in Harrisburg. January 24th is the date that we've reserved space for it. We'll see if that happens. We have one prime sponsor in the House. We'd like to have one from each party in the House, and we have conversations going on in the Senate, but we'd like to have one from each party in the Senate as well, have the same bill in both chambers. The bill will die in this summer because the constitutional amendments have to pass 3 months before the next election. So there's only a short window for a bill in this session, but we want to at least have the bills out there, have the public look at them, have legislators talk about them, get feedback, and be really well prepared to have new bills introduced, or the same bill with any fine tuning that needs to happen, introduced immediately at the start of the next session, so that we have the full session to work on getting the bill passed. One of the things we've discovered as we've been going through this is how broken our state legislative process is. This was not something that we were aware of when we started, when our bill with 110 co-sponsors got gutted with less than 24-hour notice. Legislators and former legislators started calling me to say, now you see. I was like, now I see what? And they said, you see, the process is broken. We introduced bills. We know they have support. We know we have support from both sides. Don't allow them to move. The committee chairs kill them. Just 1 or 2 people can kill a bill that has huge bipartisan support. And Pennsylvania, we've been looking at other states. You know, all states have issues, but Pennsylvania is one of those states that allows way too much power for individual committee chairs. So we can have a committee chair saying, as we did, this committee will never look at a gun safety bill as long as chair himself is the chair. And it's said in a way that's kind of I am in charge, I make the decisions. Imagine a representative who's elected by less than 0.5% of Pennsylvania gets to decide that this bill is going to move or not. And that's what we're up against. So part of what we've done in Fair Districts PA we're narrowly focused on redistricting, but we've expanded just a little bit to look at legislative process. And I would encourage you as a group to also be looking at legislative process, because unless you understand how broken our legislative process is, and unless you run on that issue, you're not going to be able to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish. And it's sad to see legislators promise things and then they get elected and those things don't happen. And then their constituents say, hey, you promised to do this thing. It didn't happen. We're going to vote for someone else. Instead of them understanding, you promised to do the thing. It didn't happen because the process is broken. And until we force enough change in the process itself, the good solutions, the bipartisan solutions, the reforms Pennsylvania needs will never happen. So we started a campaign called the Fix Harrisburg campaign. We have a Fair Districts PA website, and we have a Fix Harrisburg website. We've done 2 reports under the Fix Harrisburg name, one called Dysfunction by Design, which was a white paper on what's broken in our state legislative process. And we just recently did one about the first quarter of this session. So far in this session, our legislature has passed 40 bills. 40 bills. There are part-time legislatures. Virginia is one. They have this past session, they had a divided legislature. Republicans controlled one chamber, Democrats controlled the other chamber. Their legislative session starts in January, ends before the end of February. They passed over 800 bills in that amount of time. Here we have a full-time legislature that since the start of the year has passed 40 bills. So there's a lot that's broken. There's a lot to pay attention to. I would love your involvement in Fair Districts PA in whatever way you would like. I'll put our website in your chat for both of the websites, and the Fix Harrisburg website. If you look at it on the home page, there's a little box in the corner that says Dysfunction by Design. That's one report, and then there's another box that says read our latest report. We also have 2 petitions. I'll put the petition signups in your chat as well. One is for the Independent Redistricting Commission. The other is the Fix Harrisburg petition saying bipartisan solutions deserve a vote. And basically that petition is saying fix the rules so that a bipartisan solution, if there's a bill with clear bipartisan support, which means co-sponsors from both chambers, or some other, there are reports that are done by bipartisan commissions that are assigned the task by our legislature. They do the report, they submit the report to the legislature, and there are reports dating back, in some places, decades, where there are recommendations for legislature. Sometimes more recently, they're actually like, here is the bill. They drafted the bill. This is what you need to introduce. Those bills get introduced, and the same committees that authorized the studies, that received the reports, those bills recommended don't even get passed, that don't even get a vote in those same committees. It's a little heartbreaking to watch that take place. Anyhow, I'll put those links in the chat, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And in terms of getting involved, I would say sign the petition so you get our emails, because that will give you a lot of insight into how our legislative process works. And then as we have opportunities to get involved, you can, occasionally we'll do different things seasonally. We'll have rallies and different events. All that information comes through in those emails, but we also have local groups. So you can sign to get involved as a volunteer. People from the local group would contact you, and we have working groups. One that might be of interest, and you might want to just assign someone from your group here to be part of, is we have a research team that is actively researching what goes on in our state legislature, looking at things like commission reports and what happens to those. Things like, there are right now many bills that came out of committee with unanimous votes that have not been considered on the chamber floor. And there are quite a few bills that came out of one chamber unanimously that have not been looked at in the other chamber. That kind of thing, I would think, would be very interesting to you. You're welcome to be part of our research team, find out how to track those things and share that information in any way you like, because the louder we can be on that, the more effective we'll be in working for change. And I'm happy to have any questions if you have any for me.
Carol, thank you so much for being here. If anyone else has a question, please put your hand up. I just want to say, I reached out to Carol and invited her to be here, and then we had a minute to speak on the phone last week. And it was just great to be connected and recognize how like-minded the organizations are in certain ways and things that we want to be able to accomplish. And we see that there's going to be opportunities to work together. I have been on the mailing list. I've read those petitions. I really encourage everyone on this call to take a look and consider if you're willing to sign those. They certainly are aligned with what we've identified as priorities for the Ford Party as a whole. And the reports are great information. I have a good neighbor in my area that started sharing things with me some time ago, and I've continued to read and watch what they're doing with the League of Women Voters, Fix Harrisburg, and Fair Districts. And forgive my language here. I'm going to also let you know my neighbor friend gave me a book that I'm in the middle of reading. That's great history on the gerrymandering. The name of the book is Rat Fucked. So it's put a couple stars in the middle of the second half of the word, but I don't know how to pronounce it that way. But what a great read to give you the history of how the gerrymandering really took control of who is in office. So I would encourage anyone to maybe go check that out in the library or wherever you buy books. Get your hands on that book and read that. That would really motivate you to get involved with this issue specifically. Brian.
Good.
Yeah, Carol, good to see you again. I was just wondering, we are rolling out our priorities over the next few weeks, and in a few weeks we're gonna have we're gonna be talking a lot about gerrymandering. And I was just wondering, like, do you have it seems like an issue that a lot of people are passionate about. Do you find that people like to engage, and are there two sides of the argument, or everyone seems like they should be for stopping gerrymandering, right?
Yeah, I would say that that generally the public voters know that gerrymandering is cheating and don't like it. And every poll that we've seen, we've actually funded one poll, shows that it's between 65-70% of people will say legislators, politicians should have no role in drawing maps. That maps should be drawn by an independent commission. We actually were talking today about we do something called polling place outreach, which we collect petition signatures at polling places as people are leaving the poll to say, would you like to sign a petition to help end gerrymandering? When we started, there were people who didn't really know what we were talking about. We were reflecting today that by and large, people now know what gerrymandering is. And when we go to explain, we've got our little elevator speech about what it is. People are like, I know what that is. Let me sign. It's rare that people feel like, sometimes they want to say, well, how would you fix it? Sometimes we give them our little rat card and they walk to the car and then they come back and sign. But it's very rare that people are not eager to see this resolved. The trouble is legislators are the ones that we have to take a path through the legislature, and the legislative leaders are the ones who control the agenda, and the legislative leaders are the ones who draw the maps, and they are the ones who keep themselves in power by giving their colleagues a good district or a not good district. Or, I mean, there are legislators who say, my leaders have threatened to draw me off the map if I don't vote the way they tell me to. So it is very much a way for leaders to maintain control. And that's the avenue we've got to take. We've got to put enough pressure on the legislative leaders to get this done. There are plenty of legislators on both sides who know it needs to change, who think it's terrible, and who see it working against themselves and working against their ability to represent their voters. It's the leadership that needs to come to the place that they realize that the pressure is so high that they can't afford to ignore it. But the public, for the most part, doesn't like cheating, doesn't like, and knows. I mean, people kind of are much more aware than they were a decade ago that they are losing representation when the districts are drawn in a way that deprives them of a voice.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, Carol, thank you so much for being here, and I really encourage people to lean into the work that Fair Districts is doing and find ways to support it. And that's going to take us to our next
I
agenda.
think Nancy has a question too.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Nancy.
I'm used to just blurting out, but Carol, I'm used to, I'm more familiar with legislation in detail having to do with open primaries, which we also have in the state legislature. But I was shocked to hear you say that it takes 2 sessions to get a vote to the public. And I don't even know I'm just winging it here, but that's.
Yeah, that's for constitutional amendments. So primaries are not actually in our state constitution. So primaries can be changed much more easily. Our state constitution requires that the same language go through 2 successive sessions, that there be a 3-month advertising period before the next election, and then go through another session and another 3-month advertising period, and then go to public referendum. That's another issue you might want to look at. There are plenty, about half of the states now have citizen initiative, which means that you have an avenue to bypass the legislature. But again, you'd have to have a constitutional amendment to get that. And how do you do that in Pennsylvania when the leaders don't want to allow that? So avenues to reform in Pennsylvania are very difficult. That's why it's incredibly important that we have more and more and more people who are aware of how things work, who are advocating for change, and who are running on this issue. And there have been some candidates, but not enough, who have run on this issue and made it actually a campaign issue to say we have to do better in terms of representing the people who elect us. We have to work towards reform. So having forward party candidates pick up this as an issue, and especially to talk about how broken our legislative process is, I think could be incredibly valuable. I wanted to say one thing about the book Rat Fucked, which came out just shortly after we started, and I had begun researching Pennsylvania's sad and sorry history regarding redistricting, and then saw that book, which was kind of a sad confirmation of the work that we were doing. But when you look at it, notice that Pennsylvania gets 2 whole chapters. We're the only state in the country that gets 2 whole chapters. And so it's, there are many times we run into, oh, look, Pennsylvania is singled out once again. And it's never in a good way, just saying. So I'm glad to see Forward Party at work here. Look forward to, seeing what you are able to do, and certainly welcome your help with the work that we're doing. Looks like Dan has his hand up too.
I just wanted to give Carol a shout out because I've followed her work probably for the last few years as I started to become more politically active, and especially from a social media standpoint. They provide great information, and I retweet and share a lot. I feel like almost everything that they put out, or if I don't actually share it, I want to share it. So I would thank you for being here, Carol. It's nice to connect with you from a Fair District standpoint, and I hope I can reach out and we can connect offline too.
Thank you, Dan. And I do see you on social media. I should mention that, using social media, especially Twitter, our legislators, legislative leaders, policy staff, they are on Twitter. So they see what happens there. So I would beg you to follow Fair Districts PA, Fix Harrisburg. We also have some other regional Fair Districts PA groups, Fair Districts PA Chester, and each of them has their own tone. Fair Districts PA Chester is, and you might have to look a little bit because I don't think that's the exact name of it, but kind of, a really purple but important county. Chester County has become one of those counties that was Republican, has flipped. When I started in 2016, Chester County was almost entirely run by Republicans, with the one required Democrat in the county commission. It is now flipped completely the other direction with one remaining Republican legislator. All the rest are now Democrats. And I think it's a bit of a bellwether to say, are you listening? Because it's not moving because of particular issues, but more because of awareness of how broken things are and saying, who can we get that will actually represent us? So that Fair District's Chester County account is a good one to follow. And then there's also a Fix Harrisburg Rural, because rural Pennsylvania has been probably more harmed than anybody by an unresponsive legislature. And yet that message doesn't get through very well. So if you have rural folks, we're looking for ways to energize rural voters to kind of realize that they are being left behind by the fact that legislators don't have to listen because they are in safe districts. Anyhow, thank you for your support, really. And I'll spend a minute and put those Twitter links in chat before I leave. But thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Carol. Thank
Thanks, Carol.
you. In general, I just want to encourage everyone, not only with Fair Districts, but we want to look across Pennsylvania and see what other groups are out there that we're aligned with, that we have like-mindedness with. And let's get connected. We're not in competition with one another. We're looking to accomplish very, very often the same goals, if not similar goals. And the more that we can find ways to work together, the more successful we're all going to be. Across the country right now, there's a debate on whether or not this political reform movement, is it a movement or is it just a moment? And what can we do in our part here in Pennsylvania as the Forward Party, help to build that unification and bring people together to make sure that true work gets accomplished through all of the energy that's being created. So I've been in conversation with a number of people already that I've connected with personally. And what I'm really hoping for, what I aspire, and this is new to many people, even within the leadership committee, is I'm trying to connect with people from different groups across the state and see, is there an opportunity to bring everyone together for some sort of educational conference and a chance to meet one another? Because through that networking and the opportunity to build friendships, we can just really connect in a way that we know how to rely on each other when the opportunities arise to accomplish these goals and to take that next step. So those conversations are beginning. I can't promise that anything's going to happen. I'm hoping to connect some people sometime in December just on a Zoom call, and trying to target sometime next year to bring everyone together. Carol and I loosely had this conversation. I'll have to put her on the spot, but we're hoping that there might be some opportunities to work on this, along with people from Independence of Pennsylvania, people from Ballot of PA. And certainly, I know many people on this call are connected with other organizations. And so if you don't mind helping to share those introductions, or send me an email and let me know who you think I should be reaching out to. And this isn't something that we're looking to have as a Forward Party event. We're not trying to own this. We're trying to be part of it. I'm willing on a personal level to dedicate some time and help him make this thing happen, because I think it would be important for everyone. But I would love to hear from those of you who are involved with a group that you think there's a lot of alignment. Let's figure out how we can bring people together and get some big things accomplished. So I look forward to hearing from any of you. I'll just drop my email in the chat as a reminder for anyone who doesn't have it, or feel free to message the PA Forward site, and I will certainly get a hold of those messages that way as well. All right, Rachel, I want to give you the floor to talk about the PA Forward priorities. I'm going to go ahead and attempt to share my screen again and see if it works this time, to be able to bring these priorities in front of it. You wanted the screen shared so you can...
I can also share it. I can try. I'm on an iPad, so I just wasn't sure if it doesn't work, but I can try.
I have it up. I was
Okay.
having an issue before.
Yeah.
Let's see if this comes
There we
through.
go.
You guys see it?
Yes, Christian, yeah, we can see it for sure. So thank you. I feel really, I'm grateful for the opportunity to share this. We've been working on it for quite a few months, and the timing couldn't be better on the heels of Carol's, presentation, and what we've really been talking about with partner organizations and working together to get some of these things accomplished. So we've been working on our priorities for the state of Pennsylvania. We know that we are in alignment with the national party principles. but each state is really tasked with figuring out its own priorities. And I think it's very important that we start being able to answer the question, like, what are you guys about? What's important to you? Everyone wants to say, what's your platform or what are your policies? And that's where we sometimes struggle a little bit to articulate how Forward is different than the traditional large parties that we deal with that don't get as much done. So this document here, or this link to the page, almost the most important sentence in the whole thing is that the following are the immediate priorities of the Pennsylvania Forward Party. Forward candidates, office holders, and candidates who seeking endorsement should provide solutions on these items in their individual policy platform. So there is the difference. We are looking for candidates who come to us, or we find, we come across each other who stand for solutions for these issues. These are currently the top 7. It's meant to be, again, it says immediate priorities. It's meant to be a working document, a living document. We achieve open primaries. We move on to the things Carol was talking about, perhaps another form of legislative reform, perhaps, citizens initiatives, something like that. We've had side conversations. But here's what we've currently identified. How did we identify these? Jack Merritt and I started the project early, and we've expanded to a little task force, but we did initially circulate a poll by ranked choice voting to Pennsylvanians that we could reach the top 5 issues important to you, given, I don't know, there were probably about 20 or 22 listed, and then asked to rank top 5 in order. But we acknowledge that, the people who we're able to reach is not really a random sampling, let's say, or an accurate representation of Pennsylvania completely. So that's something we struggled with. But we were able to compare our results to a Quinnipiac poll, which polled Pennsylvanians a much larger N, and it asked the question slightly differently. What is the most important issue for you in choosing a presidential, who to vote for president in the upcoming election? So similar but different, but the results came out, kind of reinforcing each other. And then we met and we were comfortable settling on these 7, divided into 2 categories, governmental and societal. So I can briefly share them with you. And to what Christian was talking about, some of them are obviously aligned organizations: open primaries, ballot PA, independent redistricting committees. There you are, Carol, fair districts. We could even, link to perhaps, I'm not sure exactly what fixed Harrisburg, it might be some of the other things. Maybe that comes later. Ranked choice voting. There's a national site that we're linking there. And as Brian alluded to, there's 7 weeks left in the year, counting the week we're in, and we're planning to focus or feature each of these priorities, now that the election has passed, 1 per week in the coming weeks on our social media channels and website and things like that. So if you are connected to a partner organization or know of something that we should share during that week, a great video, a clip of something that is applicable, or again, like I said, a partner organization or an event or a TED Talk, anything that you feel like might be applicable, I would just recommend emailing it to the PA Forward website, because that'll get to the communications team and we can, look at what we get. We are just, a group of volunteers. And so we have some obvious partner organizations, but you guys out there might work in the areas or industries. As we get down to societal priorities, if we scroll, I won't read them all in detail, but it's the economy, environment and energy, solutions that benefit both, healthcare, and safer communities. So I encourage you guys to read the actual wording. We worked really hard on the wording to be specific yet inclusive, to provide a large tent to attract a lot of people who will be solution-oriented, data-driven, and make change in Pennsylvania. Those are our priorities.
Thank you, Rachel.
And thanks to everybody who worked on it. We did have a partnership, Jack and I, that started it and expanded to a work group. And we really just settled on these November 17th? October 17th, officially, I think it was. Many iterations, much discussion. Who am I to say exactly the verbiage and the topics, but we're really proud of this document. These are the things that are important to us. Come to us if you want to align with Forward and present solutions, and we'll support you.
And these priorities really were driven by trying to reach out and reflect and listen to the people within the community. And that includes you, if you're on this call, and your friends and your neighbors. So if there's something that's missing, or if there's something that you'd like to see in the next iteration, we want to hear from you. But we'd also would love for you to embrace and understand why these are what we're leading with for the time being. Ask questions or make suggestions on possible solutions, but understand we're not looking to define the solution from a forward party level. Much as Rachel really highlighted at the beginning there, the idea is to allow people to bring their solutions. Let's continue to refine one another through conversation so that we can get beyond any of the obvious solutions that people argue over today and actually get to a point where things can be implemented and move things truly forward in a better direction than the stalemate of just holding these issues hostage that we've often seen in the past.
Yeah, and I
So-
would just add that it's a great way to answer that question if you're, at Thanksgiving dinner or just in a social setting and someone, hey, I saw you're working with Forward. I don't get it. What's your policy? What's your platform? We hope to give our membership and people interested in us the tools to have that conversation, which is something that we sort of struggling with. We'll call it messaging from a national and local standpoint. So this is a good step in the right direction to say, these are the things that are important to us. We need leaders who are going to listen and solve our problems. These are the 7 issues we're currently focused on. What do you got? So hopefully that's helpful. We've had some conversations with other states, specifically Texas, who really are trying to just really take that verbatim and put in their own priorities. Some will be similar, some will be different. Like immigration is a larger priority to their constituency. Not that it's not important to us, but it ranks perhaps lower. Maybe it'll be in the next iteration. But that first line, again, I think is a good, concise, this is what's important to us. This is how the party works. We're looking for people to solve these problems.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much to Rachel, to Jack, to everyone else who helped to work with putting that together for the communications team as you roll this out and introduce everyone. I know just this past week, as you started rolling out these priorities, people are paying attention. We've had some new signups. Actually, some of you showed up at the Western PA meetup in a direct response to one of the priorities that was being promoted this past week. So it's great to see that people are following and paying attention to these things. This is how we're going to get things done. I do notice in the chat that Peter's having some trouble with the Fair Districts website. If anybody has a link or solution there, I think there might be something. There we go. Thank you, Carol. All right. We're going to pass the microphone to Ben. Just an introduction for those who may not know. I think a lot of people have had a chance to hear from Ben or see him before. He serves as our secretary and also as our candidates chair. So Ben has been a very busy man and has done a lot of work for the party. We appreciate all of that. I'm going to let you you have the floor now, Ben, and talk about the results of 23, but also our goals for 24.
All right. Could you let me share my screen for a second, if you can? Okay. Gonna go through the results real quick. As you can see, Chris Woodward, who spoke earlier, won for his race. This is significant because he is one of only 2 people who ran under the Forward banner in the entire country who got elected on election day. So that's big for us because it's the first step to becoming a important player in politics. In Allegheny County, Steve Zappala was able to win against Matt Dugan. This was one of the major races that we got involved with. We endorsed Mr. Zappala, and we were able to see a victory this year. And also in Philadelphia, Seth Bluestein was endorsed by us, and he also was able to retain his city commissioner seat. Although it says vote for two, this is a vote for two, three, the top three win. So he was able to win. Unfortunately, there were some losses. Joe Rocky, who we endorsed for Allegheny County Chief Executive, was unable to pull out a victory. Although he made it extremely close, it was just not enough to overcome the voter advantage in Allegheny County that the Democrats had. Wow. Christian might have mentioned Jordan also was unable to pull out a victory this time. We still think he has a bright future ahead of him, and hopefully we can work together in future campaigns. Brittany Cozen was unable to win for Warwick Township Supervisor. In Lancaster County, we had endorsed Bob Hollister for County Commissioner. This was a vote for two, the top three candidates win. He was unable to pull out one of the seats. Also, Shannon Wheeler was unable to win as well for a magisterial district judge. And also, finally, Tim McMaster was unable to win his township supervisor race that was in York County. Okay. Going forward, we are looking at in 24 to become a minor party. To do this, we have to run a statewide candidate, and they need to win 2% of the statewide total and 2% in 10 counties. So we're probably going to target probably two races. Most likely the Attorney General and Secretary race, but that is not finalized yet. But those are the ones we are looking at. We are also looking to get run candidates in a handful of PA House races. Just as long as they do not distract from our primary goal of getting the minor party status, we want to attempt to get somebody in the Pennsylvania House. With how the PA House is distributed right now, we could be the deciding factor on who becomes the Speaker of the House with just one candidate winning. So that would be pretty big if we were able to pull that off. It would make national news. So hopefully we can do something in that regards. Did you have something to say, Christian?
No. Yeah, thank you, Ben, for all of that information. Looking back at those candidates to see that there were, you know, to have Chris as a forward candidate, but then also with the affiliated candidates, seeing that there were relationships built with many different parties, right? We had the Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, independents, all that we've been able to build relationships and affiliations with. There will be some affiliations next year moving into 24, but our focus is to run forward candidates. That's what we're looking to identify, especially with that statewide race. To be able to get that party status is going to be something important, to have that ballot line really secure. And we certainly want to identify places where it makes sense to run for the state house, and where we can help to build the recognition for the party and make sure that we're going to be able to carry that required 2% or greater for that party status. But it really is going to be all about folding it back into that primary goal and helping to make sure that we can secure a future for the party. You know, it's credible, viable, durable has always been the mantra that's been buried into my head, thanks to one of the leaders from National that worked with us for a long time, Joel Searby. But when we're trying to build this new party, a forward party, credible, viable, and durable, and being able to get that state party recognized party status is certainly going to be part of that. So we really appreciate everyone embracing that goal, helping us to identify, you know, those candidates. We have people who are out there and doing research and that sort of thing. But if there's someone that you know that would fit that role that you think we should talk with, or might be able to help us reach the person who's going to be able to connect us with a good candidate for those statewide races, we certainly want to begin those conversations and get to work early on building the right strategy, the right approach, and making sure all of you have a chance to know that candidate and that they represent the values that we can be proud of, not just the accomplishment of getting to be a state party, but how we did it, because that matters just as much, right? So
Yeah, and if you do want to run or next year, and if you meet the criteria to run for one of those house races, you do need to be disaffiliated from the major parties, preferably the earlier, so you don't forget, would be the better, because they will check, and if you miss the deadline to disaffiliate, they will throw you off the ballot.
Then what is the deadline to disaffiliate?
It's 30 days before the primary.
Okay. And the primary is in May?
It's going to probably be in April. It is the presidential primary, so it's on a different date than normal. It doesn't look like the legislature is going to move it.
If I were going to follow this, to just jump in, so that to Ben's point, there's people talking about trying to move it up, but the smartest thing to do is, if you're going to disassociate and you want to make sure you beat the 30-day limit, put a calendar note that you want to do this in January. You can always change back later. That way you won't miss it if they move it up to February and it takes you a week or two in the mail. It takes. Go ahead, Chris.
And essentially what you're doing is you are registering as an independent.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've actually had this discussion with some folks, as I'm actually still registered Republican. But if you really want to influence the election in certain areas, it is a perfectly acceptable, although distasteful, strategy to, if you're like in a highly red or blue area and you want to influence, you could change to the primary party as well, and run in the and vote in the primary. But to Chris's point, what we're trying to do is get everybody at least to vote independent or
And
registered independent.
This requirement is for every election, so in 25, we're gonna be pressing people to run for the judge of election races. Those are immensely winnable, but we do need people to be disaffiliated before the deadline, so. January, change your registration. If you don't end up running, change it back.
That is the beautiful thing. They don't restrict you from changing multiple times, even within one cycle. So, stand up and be counted as an independent, even if you're of independent mindset. If you want to support Ford or you support other independent third-party politics, let yourself be counted that way, reserve the right to be able to run. And then, set a reminder in your calendar to go back and re-register if you want to be registered with a major party for the primary and then decided not to vote, and just make sure that that's in ample enough time. I really, personally, this is something that I've talked to some other folks about, encouraging everyone who's of a reform political mindset to stand up and be counted, go out, and if your state does not prevent you from changing your registration more than one time in a cycle, go out and register as an independent to be counted that way. To send a message to our politicians and make sure they're taking notice to help move a lot of these other things in the right direction. All right, moving on to our last part of the meeting today, and we will follow this up. We will have an opportunity for any Q&A if anybody has any questions that they've not had an opportunity to ask yet, but are called to action. Brian and Leah.
Yeah, thank you so much. We've got a lot going on with communications, and we're around the election cycle. We're back in this end of the year holiday phase, but we just like to get our message out there. Let me throw to Leah, and you want to tell everyone what we have in mind?
Yep, hi everyone. So we just kind of brainstormed a few different things that people can do in their spare time that don't require any special skills to kind of get the word out there and help move the party forward. So the first one is sort of just meeting people and talking to them about the party. And sometimes you can do this with a specific intention in mind. Maybe like Christian mentioned, it's someone who works at a potential ally organization, maybe someone working on one of our priorities. So you could reach out to them to chat to them about the priorities document and, get their thoughts on how to approach it, right? Or, maybe somebody in your network is a potential volunteer, right? Some of the places where we need a lot of help right now are, press and PR or events or research or social media. Can always use more people to get involved. Maybe you could reach out to someone and ask them to help with a specific small task. And get them interested and involved with the party that way. And then, of course, there's donations, although that's a little bit harder for some people to ask their friends and contacts about. But if you're interested in learning more about that, Tim is a great resource. So yeah, I think a lot of the growth that's happening in the party right now is happening through one-to-one conversations between people like those on this call who are really passionate about the cause and their immediate networks. That stuff is really powerful. So, even if it's just over the dinner table, politics, sometimes not recommended at family parties, but if you feel called to it, give it a shot. Every little bit of kind of getting the word out there to our networks really helps. And on a similar theme, social media is an area that we're really trying to grow right now. And we're getting a little bit of growth on the different platforms where we're active right now. The party is active most on Facebook and Instagram, on X, formerly known as Twitter, and on LinkedIn. The LinkedIn account in particular needs a little bit of love. It's brand new. It only has about 6 followers now. So when I get off here, I'll post the links to the accounts in the chat, but give us a follow. And even more importantly, tag us on those platforms when you see news or you come across a story that you think is relevant or an organization that you think is doing great work, particularly as we want to start talking more about the priorities. You guys can really help us with content related to those things that strike you. And you can email those to Brian and I. If you're on the Slack channel for the party, you can post there. So there's lots of different ways to get us that content. The easiest is probably just to straight up tag us on those platforms, and send us the content directly on whichever one of those you use. But thank you for doing that. Any little bit of social growth helps us. And then lastly, on the fundraising side of things, and I don't think Tim is on this call, but just a couple of things to think about as potential tactics. Beyond just making a gift yourself, we'll post the link in the chat. You can make a monthly gift, super small. It's like subscribing to a product on Amazon or something like that. Easy and really goes a long way. If everybody on this call did that, we would be, way ahead. So beyond that simple thing, there are a couple of other little things you can think about. I believe there's a group of us that are going to do phone banking or even write letters to folks in the PA database, just talking about why we support Forward, why we think it's important, and asking for donations. If you're interested in doing that, get in touch with myself or Tim or Gabe, who's also on this call. And you can also host like a little get together. I actually did this recently at my house here in Philadelphia. I just had some friends over, invited my dad, a few people from Forward came, some friends, and Rachel came, and Tim was there, Craig Snyder was there. Just a couple of drinks on the roof, some snacks, and really great conversation. And everybody kind of donated at the end as a thank you. It's really easy to organize those things at like a local bar, at your house if you feel like it. But it was a really cool way to kind of get to talk to some people in the party, get to introduce my friends to it in like a low pressure setting. So just another thought. Again, if you feel called to help out on fundraising, we definitely need the help there. And those are just some ideas you can consider. Brian, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, great. Thank you. A couple other things we were thinking about is, we talked a lot at the beginning of the meeting about different organizations that we like to partner with, Ballot PA, Fix Harrisburg, these things. If you're involved with a group like that already, just by mentioning that you are involved with Pennsylvania Forward Party is a big help, because these are the people that are already politically minded. They're already looking for a new home outside of the established system already. And just by having a conversation with them, just by saying that that we're a group that you're involved with, goes a long way to starting the conversation and putting the seed in their head that there's a party out there that believes similar things that they believe. These networks are what's going to give us success in the long run. Another great way is letters to the editor. Letters to the editor and calling into radio talk shows or newsletters that go out, all these sorts of things. If you are a listener or a reader of a publication that you can reach out to as, someone that's a consumer of what they put out, you can suggest, hey, I'd like to pitch a story about Forward Party, or write a letter to the editor and get it published. These things are so helpful. We really just need to, make more people aware of what we're doing, so that in a few months, when we put out a story that we're running a statewide candidate, they go, you know what, I've heard of Forward Party before. That's something I want to be involved with. So yeah, as we roll out these priorities up until the end of the year, if you could do these sorts of things to get us in the minds of the people around you, it would be a big help. And this is storytelling time during the holidays. Yeah, think I'm good.
Great. Thank you, Leah. Thank you, Brian. And that brings us to the end of our agenda. I really appreciate everyone taking the time to be here. We want to open the floor for any questions before we end things tonight. Does anybody have any questions based on anything that we talked about, or something that you heard outside of this call that you just wanted to bring to the floor? Well, I really appreciate everyone taking the time to be here. Oh, Tim, yes.
Well, we shouldn't want to miss the opportunity to emphasize the December 13th event at the World Affairs Council in Philadelphia.
You have the floor.
So why don't I do that? In Philadelphia on December 13th, but also it will be available via streaming. So all of us, no matter where you are in the country, even in Florida, can dial into it. But Craig Snyder has arranged with the World Affairs Council to have a session in Philadelphia, Center City. So anybody close enough to Center City, we want you to come. The governor from New Jersey, Governor Whitman, will be moderating a panel which will include our two state senators, Boscola from Lehigh, Northampton, and Williams from Philadelphia, Delaware County, and Seth Bluestein about governance in the context of the Forward Party. The Forward Party is the agenda. They are going to give all of us membership discounts. So it'll cost us $10 a person, which is a 50% discount from the regular cost. If you're not able to come to Philadelphia, you'll be able to. You still have to register, but there's no cost to register for the stream that evening. It's like a 5:30 registration, just a 6 to 7 o'clock program. So that should be very excited. Chris, I see you're on the call, and we're also hoping that you and Kelly can come in from Berks County. I'm not sure if you're able to get in, but Craig and I wanted to invite you, and I see maybe he has just left. But we've reached out to Chris Woodward, our elected official. Oh, there you are, Chris. So hopefully you can come in.
I'd love to, Tim. If you could send me an email. I think you may have sent me something before and I lost it. So if I did, I apologize.
That's
I definitely,
yeah,
I definitely want to attend.
That will be wonderful. That really will. And so if people can come in now, we're tag teaming that, and we're also going to have a session. Our plan is to meet at 3 o'clock that afternoon, also in Center City. For any of us who can get in from Southeastern or Philadelphia, we're going
Could
to
I ask where that meeting's going to be held?
Pardon me?
When is that afternoon meeting? Where is the afternoon meeting going to be held?
Well, we haven't quite decided, but it'll be right down there around Center City.
Yeah, I'm in Center City and I could arrange to be there, but I need to know where to go.
Yeah, we'll make those decisions. You can meet, we'll include you and Norma, since you're part of the planning group. But we're going to have a meeting probably at 3 o'clock with Governor Whitman. Really just kind of a working meeting to get to know her, to visit with her, to share what we've accomplished this last year, to talk a little bit about our priorities going into 2024, especially around coalition building, that our student program and other programs. And, you know, again, getting to know Chris, who's our sitting official, and it'll be an opportunity for us to get to know each other. We're checking with her calendar right now. But and Rachel is going to put some information on in the December newsletter. You can go to the World Affairs Council website. It's wacphila.org, and there's a really nice little article in their speakers program that talks about it, and so you can go register. But the message we're given to all of you is when you register, and I'm not sure we'll get the instructions, but we'll be able to register as if we were members for a $10 fee. And so it's really exciting. And we want any of you in Philadelphia to let me know. I've talked with Nancy a couple of times and reached out to the rest of you, whether you'll be able to come. And I know Jack's going to take some time off, and Rachel's going to take some time off work to join us. So, and I think Grisewood's going to come down from Columbia County. And Peter is, I think, going to be able to join us. So it'll really be a great festive opportunity for us to get together, holiday, spirit to just visit and then go to that wonderful event that we'll have.
Thank you, Tim. Peter,
Yeah, I was just wondering how we're doing on the newsletter. It kind of dropped over the weekend. When is it going to come out?
Right.
Peter, we send out the newsletter at the beginning of every month. So, yeah, there was a November newsletter, and
I got you.
yeah,
Okay.
the conversation we were having was about getting ready for the December one. So,
Okay, well, I submitted my as requested.
great. Yeah, I appreciate that. Peter is all about universal basic income. So anybody, as we consider that as a, issue that people support or don't support, as a Andrew Yang fan, of course, I have a lot of interest in universal basic income, but I understand that might not be for everybody. So we're taking that, all learning more about it.
Christian, if I could stick my nose in once again, because we've made great progress. We can be very, very proud of that. We're involved nationally. And I think that everybody on this call, and I see some new faces, we want to know where you are, what you're interested, especially in your own county. Because of the priorities, Christian made a reference to it, I think, earlier, but because of the priority announcement we made, we sent the first one out. We got a supporter gave us a nice gift and had seen the notice of Ben's meeting up in Butler County, went to it. So we have a new volunteer in Butler County. And again, we're 1 or 2 or 3 people at a time, and we really need you. And just a bit of a report, to date, we've raised about $15,000. That's about $5,000 since July 1st. We now have 46 donors. Jack and I opened the bank account. So we have a bank account, and the preferred way is to give through Nation Builder at the Donate _ Pennsylvania page. Again, 70% of that comes to us, 30% stays with the national, and we figure we get our money's worth on that. If you have a persnickety about that, you could just give us a check to put into our bank account at PNC for our own uses. But I know a few of you have spent in-kind contributions. We're also tracking that. So Jack is the only one that's identified. He's been very, very, very supportive of us and bought some things. But I know a couple of others of you have done the same. So we need to know what you provided on an in-kind contribution level. I would like all of you to consider, as part of leadership, making a gift this year, whatever, according to your end of the year capacity. I would also like you to make a commitment for what you think you can do next year. We're already into next year. The leadership, we don't want to chase after leadership to give, and the leadership was very generous to our campaign, our summits campaign back in March and April and May. And so I'd like all of you to consider that. We've got 8 people who are giving monthly. And so if you can do that, that really is the best way to give. We really would appreciate that. And let me know what you'd commit to for next year. And we track that. They only count in Nation Builder when you actually make the gift, but we also track pledges. And so we have $15,000 in pledges, even though we have like 13,000 in actual payments being made. So half of the people in this call make monthly pledges, and we really, really appreciate that. So thank you very much in advance, and we'll continue to reach out to others to fund us for next year. Jack and I, and hopefully 1 or 2 of you would like to be on our finance committee. We need to come up with a nice budget for next year. And just to let you know what we're thinking is there's a national movement to try to get each state to be able to hire at least 1 staff person to be able to support all of us volunteers. And so hopefully that'll be part of what our budget will be for 2024. to really bring to life what Ben's doing in the candidates committee. And we also need people. So call your friends, have them sign up. And any of you who are new, welcome, and reach out and let us know where you are and what you might be interested in doing. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tim. I wanted to follow up with one thing from the chat before we're signing off here. Leah had mentioned something about some training. We will be looking to do some training. Last year, Ethan Demi had hosted some classes for Forward Party candidates, but we also have built an alliance with the Good Party. If anyone goes, the Good Party is not a party, but they instead are a group that has been put together to empower and utilize technology to support independent-minded candidates, and including Forward Party. So they basically will help to support you with a virtual campaign manager. There's classes to help understand the things that you need to do, the tools and resources you need to help run your campaign. And I've had some good conversation with people within the party just this past week. And I know National's been talking to them for quite some time, but I encourage anyone who's considering a campaign, or if you know someone else who may be interested in running, to direct them to the Good Party website and sign up for a quick introductory call. It takes 10 to 15 minutes, and they can help direct you the right way to utilize or to get signed into their program, get into the classes, and also get access to the tools. And one other thing, for those who are early to this call, you heard me say this already. I'm actually in the midst of a 6-week class with the March on Harrisburg right now that's available to all of you as well. And it's on how to lobby in the Pennsylvania state legislature. And Rabbi Michael Pollock is leading this class, and great information and helping to understand how the Pennsylvania works. We're 2 weeks into the 6-week class. I had to leave tonight's class early to help host this meeting. But I can't wait to get back to the recording and see the rest of the information from tonight. But I would encourage anyone, if that sounds even the slightest bit interesting to you, if you want to understand how our legislatures work as we help to get people into office, it's great, very insightful in helping understand that process and how those conversations are done. So, all right. If there's no new hands, I think we're just going to adjourn for the night. Thank you. And especially to those Philadelphia folks who endured even while your Eagles play. I know we lost some to the game. I'm going to go check how they're doing myself, but really appreciate everyone being here tonight and for all the support and all the work that's done to help grow this party. It's exciting to see things getting done.
Thank you.
Everyone.
All right.
Good night, everybody.